What is up, guys? It's the Hockey Radar tracking drafts and prospects. In today's video, we are continuing our 2026 draft series going with Swedish phenom Ivar Stenberg of Frölunda in the SHL. Stenberg is going into his draft eligible season as the number 3 prospect behind Keaton Verhoff and Gavin McKenna, whose videos are already posted, so make sure to go check them out. Still only 17 years old, Stenberg began last season in the Swedish Junior League, where he would put up the best points per game in the league with 53 points in 27 games for a 1.963 points per game. He would also put up one of the highest point per game rates at the U18 Worlds with 13 points in 7 games played. After a strong start in the Junior League, he would get a call up to Frölunda of the SHL and would finish out his 2024-25 season with 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points in 25 games, which is still impressive considering he is a 17-year-old playing amongst men in Sweden. What was most impressive was his production in Frölunda's playoffs, as he would be top 5 on his team, putting up 6 points in 12 games, which are numbers that are almost unheard of from a player in his draft -2 season. Standing at 6 feet, 181 pounds, Stenberg is the stereotypical highly skilled, highly offensive, smallish Swedish winger, like the Jesper Bratts or the Lucas Raymonds of the NHL. Ivar Stenberg shoots left, however he can play either side on the wing and won't turn 18 for another month. Stenberg projects to be a top-line winger in the NHL, and hopefully he can get a bit bigger and stronger physically, as his height may get in his way a bit, like we saw with Victor Eklund falling to 16 in this past draft due to his smaller stature. Therefore, the only negative I have for Stenberg right now is potentially his size, and potentially his position on the wing, as we could see centers jump ahead of him like we saw with Martone and Eklund falling in favor of centers. If there's a center who can end this season right around the same projection as Stenberg, we may see that center be picked ahead of him, as so many teams are so desperate for center depth in this league, and it's always easier to draft a center and switch him to wing than it is to draft a wing and switch him to center. But enough about those couple negatives, let's talk about how amazing of a player Stenberg is. Stenberg has phenomenal hands and vision, but also a quick release that can find the back of the net. He possesses a typical Swedish high hockey IQ and projects to be a magnificent offensive force and playmaker in the NHL. He is deadly when he can get in and around the net, as he's got quick hands to beat the goalie or feed a teammate backdoor. He really does not need much space to make great plays, as he has very good stick skills in tight spaces. He is very elusive along the boards, using his edge work to spin away from defenders and either carrying it towards the net or feeding it in the slot for a scoring chance. He has great rushes up the ice, as he is a strong play driver and puck carrier. He takes it wide and looks to attack the goal by cutting in and taking the goalie head on. He has amazing vision on the power play, as play often goes through him. He can either find open teammates for great chances, or he can open up and use his one-timer to beat the goalie clean. Obviously different play styles, but what he can do on the power play, or at least what he did in the Swedish Junior League, is very similar to what Kucherov does on Tampa's power play. He opens up and fakes like he's going to take a one-timer only to slide it to the slot or backdoor for a tap-in. And if and when the goalie catches on, he is just as capable with his own one-timer to beat the goalie short side. Like I said, he is a bit on the smaller side, a very typical smaller elite swingish winger, with comparables like Lucas Raymond, Jesper Bratt, or either of the Eklund brothers. In their draft-eligible seasons, Raymond would put up 4 goals and 10 points in 33 games with Frölunda, William Eklund would put up 11 goals and 23 points in 40 games in the SHL, and Victor Eklund would put up 19 goals, 31 points in 42 games in Sweden's second league. I could see Stenberg putting up numbers in between the Eklund brothers, and I project him getting 13 goals, 15 assists for 28 points if he plays around 40 games. Stenberg often put up roughly a 1-to-1 ratio of goals to assists, and I could see him following that trend this season. Teams that could potentially be picking at number 3, again I will go with the Pittsburgh Penguins, as they are a threat for any of the lottery picks, and although Stenberg would instantly become their best prospect, I think they have their eyes set on a bigger prize. Nonetheless, Stenberg would be a great fit for Pittsburgh, as they are in desperate need for some youth and high-level skill in that lineup, and they could form a strong 1-2 punch on that left wing with Stenberg and McGroarty. The Flyers could also use a great left-wing prospect after taking some righties in Michkov and Martone, and centers in Luchenko and Nesbitt. Adding Stenberg would create an even scarier-looking top 6 in a few years. Although adding head coach Rick Tocchet means that they could possibly improve, Philly really doesn't look like they've gotten much better this offseason, and brought in some expensive signings like Dvorak and Vladar. And although I don't think they'll finish last, I really think they'll be near the bottom of the league and a threat to pick in the top 3. Kind of an outside pick, but Boston could be a threat to pick high in next year's draft, especially if they can't turn it around and if they play like they did in April and March. Although it is likely they turn things around with a Swayman bounce back and getting McAvoy and Lindholm back for full seasons, maybe a quick retool is really what they need, and Stenberg could fill a huge hole at left wing with the trading of Marchand last year. Again, it's unlikely, but adding Stenberg to a prospect pool of Hagens and Minton could be huge for Boston, and they could retool quickly and still compete within McAvoy and Pasternak's prime. I also think that the fact that they didn't name a captain means that they don't see themselves as a top contender. Maybe I'm reading into that too much, but maybe they will embrace a small retool. Just remember, what happened with the Islanders and Utah this past season, you don't have to finish dead last to win the first overall pick. You could finish just outside the playoffs and still end up with a high pick. Last team, I could see the Sharks picking top 3 again, as even if they do improve and say they get 12 more wins this season, which is a stretch since they only got 1 more win in 24-25 than they did in 23-24, but even if they get 12 more wins, that would still put them tied for 4th last in the season standings. So even if they do improve, which they should, they still may be low enough in the standings and grab a top pick. Adding Stenberg would bolster the future top 6 even more than it already is, and it could look like Eklund, Celebrini, Smith, Stenberg, Misa, and Igor Chernyshov. That's all for today's video. Ivar Stenberg is going to be a top player in this year's draft, and projects to be an elite winger in the future in this league. I'm excited to see what he does in the SHL this year, and most likely with Team Sweden at the World Junior Championships. As always, I will be adding new players to this series, as well as repeating the top 3 that I've already featured as their season progresses. Let me know what you guys think of Ivar Stenberg, and what team you would like to see draft him at next year's draft. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for tons of more content to come.